All right. Hey, everybody. Colin Plume, CEO of Noble Gold Investments, here with Hope Ragusa, our Director of Sales, our everything in sales, the head honcho here. We're going to have a fun day talking about stocks, retirement, coins, gold, a little bit of everything.
Sounds good. Let's get into it.
Let's get into the thing that I would say got me started in the business was the $50,000 retirement scam and how premium coin dealers are stealing gold IRA dreams. And maybe you just, let's take our time because there's probably people in here that aren't aware of that, because I think until you really like peel back the onion, a lot of times it doesn't make sense as how this could happen. So
Sure.
Let's just kind of talk about maybe what we hear from clients. Obviously, we don't do this. We're not a premium coin dealer. We're a bullion dealer. But let's just talk about kind of what we hear. I mean, you talk to people every day, but things that you hear from clients that have gone through this.
Yeah, absolutely. The made up term semi-numismatic, the industry created their own term, which means sort of rare, and it's completely made up. It doesn't really actually exist.
Right.
So companies can work with a mint, the Royal Mint, even reputable mints, and create a coin. We always joke about the Arctic Monkey coin, an Arctic Monkey coin that nobody's heard of.
Right.
And they produce a limited quantity of them and sell them as sort of rare because there's only 5,000 of them produced and in circulation in the entire world. And they're sold for an absolute ridiculous price, a very, very high premium.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this idea, this kind of bait and switch idea started, the first coin they did was the Gold American Eagle Proof. And so they would say that these coins, and actually that coin is actually rare. And actually that coin is desirable. But then what happened was there were so many of these gold dealers, they didn't have enough.
Mm-hmm.
So then somebody figured out like, well, I'll go to the Royal Canadian Mint, or I'll go to one of these mints and say, make me, a limited supply of 1.5 ounce silver coins or 1/4 ounce gold coins, and put a polar bear or an Arctic monkey, or, I mean, there's a million of these, put a shipwreck, whatever it is, put all this on there. And then we're just going to tell people on the phone that they're rare.
Yep.
And it's, we've seen, I've seen the commissions when I started 16 years ago, but you're looking at typically this scam is a 50% plus commission.
Absolutely. And it says that in the transaction agreements of other companies, 60% plus
Yeah.
at the discretion of the sales associate. It's shocking. And I think it's one thing to buy a coin at a very high price. That's not the proper value of the coin, but there's a second part to this, which is almost worse. When these clients that own these coins go to sell them, there is no market. And they find that out 5 years later, 10 years later, when they're calling us, hey, I bought this coin from a company that's no longer in business 10 years ago. Will you buy this 1.5 ounce silver Arctic Monkey coin? And what is that? We've never heard of that. They think it's rare and desirable.
Yeah.
It's bad.
Yeah.
It's really sad.
And you can go to the BBB and see these scams. You can see the complaints, and that's why we always tell people, like, do your due diligence on us, check out our reviews, but spend the time. And the scam is always, we're going to give you free silver. We're going to give you free gold. It always starts with that, because that's how they hook you in, right? Yeah. Oh, wow, I'm going to get free silver, free gold. I got to take this call. Oh, some big celebrity says this company's good. I can tell you this. I've been in the calls with endorsers, celebrities. They don't care. They don't do any due diligence. They say they do, but they don't. They absolutely don't do any. So in his defense, I will say that Charlie Kirk did do due diligence on us, and he does read our reviews. So there's a few that probably do care about the reputation. I actually just got off a call with an advertiser for our crypto company, and he was saying that he got offered $100,000 to have an advertiser, $100,000 in 1 month to come on the show and talk about a coin that they created, a crypto coin. And he's like, this guy was like, listen, the amount of money is so outrageous because the amount of money they can make. And then, but the problem is that once that coin falls to zero, then he'll get wrapped up in a scam. The problem in the gold business is that these big celebrities they think they're immune.
Mhm.
And they think that it's okay to represent them. And I've seen it since obviously buying ads on the advertising side, the cost to buy these ads is just skyrocketed because if someone can charge on $100,000 transaction and they can make $50,000 or $60,000, they can pay a big celebrity a lot of money and build that trust. And so we see it every single day. We see it happen to people, and so it's just, you just got to be careful. If it's too good to be true, it typically is.
Absolutely, especially in the gold business.
Yeah,
especially in gold.
Yeah, and especially in the gold, it's an unregulated industry. And listen, every year you see a company go out of business, or they don't deliver, or you see the reputation come out. But honestly, the government hasn't done enough, in my opinion, to crack down on these bad actors. I mean, I think the thing that's for me is like gold has gone up so much, and to read these, I've read so many reviews, especially in the last few weeks, that say, I bought gold when gold was at $1,600 an ounce. Gold's over 3,000. I'm still negative.
Yep.
And that to me is that's the big issue for me, is that these people bought gold at the right time, and they bought it from the wrong company, and now they're in a position where they should have had all these gains. Yep. And listen, these people are in retirement, they need the gains. So we've had a lot of clients make a lot of money with us because they bought bullion, they bought the right products, and they're obviously happy that they did. So for anybody that's listen, if you're halfway through the process or started the process with a gold dealer and you just want us to take a look at what it is and just get a second opinion,
Absolutely.
Call us. No harm, no foul. And I think we've saved people. I remember looking at a $1 million trade where we saved that client $500,000 in fees.
Yep.
And just imagine if that was your retirement account.
Yep.
So
if you want a second opinion, anything sounds fishy, I wish we could have a flashing light above the screen. Public safety announcement,
Yeah.
Please beware. If anything does not seem right, just call us. We are not high pressure. We're here to give really good advice, the best advice that we can to help people, because ultimately this is your retirement money, and everyone deserves, their hard-earned money to be there when they need it the most.
Absolutely. Yeah. What are your thoughts on the Tech 7? What do you think when you think of retirement accounts today? Over 30% are tied into 7 companies. What does that make you think?
Yeah, the S&P 500, over 35% of the stocks owned are by 7 companies, Magnificent 7. And if you start to read the statistics on this, I don't think many companies or people are talking about this. In the past 10 years, we've seen 1,700% for NVIDIA in gains, 500% gains from Tesla to Apple and the other top 7. Where do we expect these to go?
Right. Yeah. How much higher? How much more do these things plan to go? And I think, we saw earlier this year with DeepSeek that, NVIDIA, had some problems and they had some pretty significant pullbacks. Tesla has obviously had, sort of a rough go this year. I think what it is diversification is really the key. And for most Americans, if they're not really watching their portfolios, to have so much of their net worth tied into these companies that can be so volatile and so affected by, what's happening in China and the tech and can we get chips and, the volatility of the markets and there's just so many factors that as an investor, you need to be cautious of. But I think a lot of people aren't aware that a lot of their net worth is really riding on these seven companies.
Absolutely. And the hype, right? You hear everybody's talking about Tesla's in the news all the time. Elon's in the news all the time. And then you look at what it takes to buy a stock compared to their earnings for that share of each stock. And a lot of it's hype. It's
A lot of it's
not,
hype.
we talk about inflation in the gold business all the time. If you want to buy stocks at an all-time high, well, you're buying stocks at an all-time high and there's probably only one way they're going to go.
Mhm.
We talked about this in the last podcast we did, or the other time we were talking, which was gold is at an all-time high. So people say, why would I buy gold at an all-time high? Well, gold at an all-time high is connected to the dollar and other currencies. So you're maintaining your value, whether the dollar strengthens or weakens. Sitting in a gold position is going to be much more sustainable than buying a stock at an all-time high that's really likely to go down.
Yeah, and I think, you know, the other thing to look at is the net buyers of gold, right? The net buyers of gold are central banks. So they're holders, they're net buyers, they're holders of gold. They have no reason to sell. Whereas in the stock market, we've seen it time and time again, is that when you start to see some sell-offs, people get nervous, right? They
Mhm.
sell. But when your largest holder in our asset gold is central banks, they're not afraid to hold on to assets for the long term. And then, you know, I think the thing that is exciting for gold is the Basel III laws coming into effect in July.
Mhm.
And so the fact that big banks are going to be buying gold and physical gold and storing it, it's a whole new group of net buyers. So the stock market, the PE ratios, I think is what you're learning to, are all out of whack. You know, companies are way overpriced for their earnings. And so just a matter of time before those things happen. And you see like big investors like Warren Buffett. I mean, it's so interesting that he just like finally retired when we have like arguably one of the most inflated stock markets of all time. Like he probably is like he's gonna hand it off. He's gonna hand off this bubble to somebody else, right?
Yep.
Like he wants to go out on a win. So he's getting out of the business. And I know he gave some reason as to why, but in my opinion, he's basically been selling, going into cash positions, and now he hands over the business and says, hey, you figure this out, right? So I think that's really interesting. And I think people are starting to open their eyes to that situation.
You know, Coinbase just got added to the S&P 500. And so people call us and say, well, I don't really want to invest in gold because I don't know about gold. But do they know that if they're in the stock market invested in the S&P, part of that is
Coinbase.
a crypto,
Yeah.
a crypto platform? I think it's it represents a small percentage compared to the Magnificent Seven. But again, what are people investing in if you're not paying attention?
Sure.
What is your money going to?
Yeah, and Coinbase, I mean, they came out last year and said if they have financial problems, they could have access to funds, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they are not, and they're not going to be immune to another crypto winter or a pullback. So I think it's really you're buying into a company that has betting all of that net worth, all that company growth on crypto, which is obviously extremely volatile. So I do think that is quite interesting to see that. And I think this year overall, Hope, I mean, looking at stocks, I mean, just the amount of volatility that we've seen, it's just unbelievable. It can't make it, listen, I'm not close to retirement, but if I was like 1 to 2 years away from retirement or in retirement, it can't make you feel good to see your account have this kind of volatility, right? I mean, would you say that's a big reason why people are calling us?
Oh, absolutely. And it's not just the stock market. The stock market's one aspect of the dollar devaluing. People are realizing their dollar is not going as far as it used to, even 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
The institutions are concerned. There's concern on concern on concern, and there doesn't seem to be a way out unless you're going to something physical and tangible.
Yeah. And it was like the other asset that everybody would go into would be real estate, right?
Yep.
And I think that's real estate today, when you look at interest rates, I think a lot of people, I was actually talking to, over the weekend, I was talking to one of the biggest real estate agents, residential agents in Los Angeles. And he was like, things are picking up. And I'm like, but what do you mean? He's like, yeah, because sellers finally realize that the prices are never going back up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why he said they're busy. It's because they've been telling, and these are like, this guy sells like 10, 15, $30 million properties. He's, a celebrity realty guy. And he was just saying, yeah, the sellers were like, they could hold on for a year, they could hold on for a year and a half, but now we're going on 2-3 years. And they just can't afford to hold on. So now when they go to them and go, this is where you need to be priced, they're being more open to it. And I said, so we started talking about some of the listings he's working on. I'm like, can you even sell at those prices? He's like, these list prices are 20% lower than what they wanted. Where I wanted to go was 30 or 40% lower.
Wow.
But he's like, at some point, you take the listing and then you just let them get the offers come in. But yeah, so they're coming in so aggressively lower than even the comps from 6 months ago, because they know that the buyers, there's so few buyers that can afford to buy today. I mean, it's just, that's the thing, the affordability factor. I talked about it last week, but the first time home buyers, 38 years old today. It used to be 30 years old. And then the median age home buyer is 56 years old. So if you look at like all the investments and you kind of go down like the pinnacle, it used to always be like stock market, real estate. Those were sort of pinnacle bonds. And those are really starting to crack, I think, at this point. The bond market is really struggling to sell off bonds, U.S. bond, and the U.S. Treasury tried to sell off, 20-year notes 2 weeks ago. And, there was nobody buying. So the Fed had to come in and buy it. So you just have like us buying our own debt. You have real estate, still got a long way to go. And then, the stock market is basically pegged to 7 companies. So what else is there, And so that's why I think gold, when people talk to me, once I break down the scenario, then they like, oh, gold makes sense, right? It's like before it didn't make sense, but now it's starting to make sense.
And that actually makes me think of one other thing. We get a lot of calls. People say, or I'm talking to somebody on the phone and find out they have a significant amount of cash. I mean, people have $250,000, $300,000+ of cash sitting in the bank in a cash position, waiting for an opportunity. And they don't realize that they can buy physical gold and silver that we will ship directly to their house. It sounds like kind of impossible, but that is a reality. We do that every day, all day for years. We ship millions of dollars of gold and silver all across the country. So if you're sitting in cash because you see everything that we're talking about, you can't go into the stock market, properties are not a good option, or you don't see any viable option, anything to do with your cash, you can turn your cash into physical gold and silver that we can ship directly to your house and or have stored.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think listen, the IRA is not going to be for everybody because we have people that are past retirement age, or they just don't have a lot, or maybe they're just like self-employed and haven't opened up one of those accounts. And so there's, different people that this fits for, but, we've had a lot of people in this over the last few years that have acquired, and like we stored for them. When we store, it's great because they call immediately and they can liquidate that day. So that's a nice advantage too, but we're happy to ship it anywhere in the country. Obviously it comes out in a nondescript package and we have somebody sign for it. There's a whole process there. So, because people always ask me like, how are you guys shipping across, like, how is this safe?
Can you send this to me?
Yeah.
Really?
But I mean, and since you've been with us, I mean, I think we've had
very, very good system.
I mean, I think maybe have had like less than a half dozen packages that had a problem, and we obviously insured, and everything got fixed. Mostly stuff happened during COVID because the drivers during COVID like didn't want to get too close, so they would just like throw the package. I mean, you heard these terrible stories, but relative to how much we shipped, billions of dollars in gold, like, I mean, so few problems.
Yep.
I think part of it is our system. The way that we do it is a little bit different. The way that we follow up and like with the tracking numbers, like it's a more in-depth.
And we ship very quickly. That's a big thing too.
That's
We're not,
a big thing
clients
too.
aren't sitting waiting for 3 to 7 weeks for their packages.
Yeah.
They go on vacation, things are happening,
Yeah.
life is going on, and
Yeah.
they're like, okay, I guess my gold will just come when it comes.
Yeah, exactly.
They know they gotta be home within 2 weeks.
Yeah.
To get
And
their
we
gold or silver.
somebody, if they go out of town or whatever, they call us, we'll pull the package, right? We don't want it to start getting delivered when they're not going to be around. I mean, these are all the little nuances that I think when people look at Noble Gold, like they don't know that there's all this work kind of behind the scenes to make sure that it's getting there in a safe and proper way. So I mean, obviously this has been a unique year with the new administration and kind of everything happening. Our debt has not gone down. We passed a pretty massive tax bill, which will lead to more debt. What do we think for the rest of this year? If debt doesn't go down, there's uneasiness in the stock market. Like, what are people, as we get into the summer and things are happening, like, what are people saying to you on the phone? Like, what are they feeling about the markets?
General uncertainty is the number one will we raise rates? Will we lower rates? We know that inflation is likely just going to continue regardless of what happens.
Also, like inflation is actually been going down, but we have this huge pissing match between Powell and President Trump. So even though inflation, if you look at true inflation, you look at all these reports, inflation is actually going. So in theory, the next meeting he should lower rates, but I don't think that he's going to. I don't see it happening. So like you have this situation where Jerome Powell is in a position where Trump wanted to fire. Oh, look at that inflation index, 1.84% right now is our inflation based on Trueflation. Based on that, below 2%, they should be pulling rates down, which would open things up a lot. But Jerome Powell, he's got the power. He's got the power until February of next year, February, March of next year. So we could be in a position where they don't lower rates, and it just creates more problems for businesses, for property owners. So we're in sort of a pickle right now, I think, with all these things happening, where investors are a little uncertain, and people are talking to me about it, and they're uncertain too. But to your point, I think being in cash too heavy is not a real advantage anymore. I don't think, obviously I always said like cash is trash, and sort of jokingly, but really, I don't think you can have a lot of money in cash today to keep up with the cost of goods.
Right. And trying to time any market, right? I mean, I think some people are trying to time, the market's going to go down, or this is this or that's going to happen. What are you missing out on in the meantime? And what are you potentially losing or giving up in the meantime to wait and try to time? If savvy investors who study these charts every day can't predict markets, why would I be able to predict the market?
Let's cut to a commercial.
I got $9,000 of free silver when I bought gold.
$9,000 in free silver. What about the fees?
Well, there were some fees.
Management, commission, probably. Let me ask you, did you pay more than this for the gold?
I paid way more than that. That free silver wasn't free.
At Noble Gold Investments, we really focus on transparency, honesty, and no gimmicks.
I wish I had talked to you first.
Invest with confidence. Invest with Noble Gold.
I mean, that commercial really illustrates what we were talking about. And the marketing team has been telling me for a while, like, we got to do a commercial. We got to go straight at this. And I think your words to the wise were really important. It's like, it's not too late. I think a lot of people get confused. Like, if you start the paperwork with the company, you can always change. Like, even if you make the buy, you got some time to get out of those trades. I mean, we've helped people unwind trades. Like, we can't guarantee it. But even if you're like in the beginning, that call us and we'll just go ounce for ounce, right? I mean, we'll compare ounce to ounce with whoever you're going to buy with, and then you could decide. And
you're in charge. It's a self-directed IRA. You're
Correct.
In control. You have all the decision-making powers.
Yeah, I mean, we get so many change of broker forms like in a month just because of this exact scenario. And I'd love to be able, and I've been trying to figure out a way, but like in terms of amount of money that we've saved clients by buying from us I mean, it's got to be in the billions, right?
Oh, it's life-changing money for people.
Yeah.
The difference of not working a few more years or retiring.
Right. That's the thing. Some of those reviews say like, I thought I had this money for retirement, and then this gold company, this shady gold company, overcharged me for semi-numismatic coins. So there's just a lot of ways to do it. So let's just kind of wrap up here, Hope. People get caught up in like, it's going to be too much work to move an account, or I don't have the time. Like, what would you say to someone that came to you with that?
It's so easy. We really are not high pressure, which I think is the best. You can call us, call me, call any of our sales associates, anybody on the team. Is so easy to talk to and helpful. We genuinely want to help you. We'll give you really great advice, and it's easy. It's fast. It's essentially 3 steps to transfer an IRA. You can start with a partial transfer if you kind of want to get your feet wet and get started. Get some gold today, just get something and end the waiting game. Take control of your retirement as soon as possible. And we will answer any questions that you have. There's no questions too off the wall. I've been here for a long time, and I've heard all the questions. So give me a call.
I'd love to know your top 5 strangest questions, but we'll save that for another day. Hope, thank you. I know you're so busy.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Colin.
you coming
Thanks for having
down.
me. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, and definitely give Hope a call if you got questions. She's helping